What's going on, everybody? Welcome on into the Delmarva Sports Insider, the only live and local show dedicated to giving you all local sports all the time. I'm Sports Director Trayvon Miles.
And I'm Brandon Bossert. Sit right in. We've got you covered for the next half hour with wall-to-wall local sports coverage here on Delmarva.
Yes, that's exactly right. Welcome on into another episode of DSI. And of course, as always, good to be back on the greatest show in America. Brandon,
that's right, Trey.
We're beginning tonight with the pros. NFL training camp in full swing, and at least one area team could or could not be a Super Bowl favorite.
That's right. We're talking about Baltimore, of course. The Ravens going 14-2 last season. They have the reigning NFL MVP in Lamar Jackson running the offense. They also feature big weapons like Mark Ingram in the backfield, downtown Marquise Brown on the outside, Mark Andrews in the middle. But the big storyline of this offseason's been the revamped front seven for Baltimore.
Yeah, that's right. The Ravens added big names, but literally none bigger than Calais Campbell, who is a huge human being, 6'8", 300 pounds, brought over from Jacksonville for a fifth-round pick.
What a steal,
That
Trey.
is robbery. All right, Baltimore also used 5 draft picks on the front seven this April. So as of now, the Ravens should be considered on the short list for favorites to come out of the AFC. But according to Coach John Harbaugh, without preseason games, it's hard to tell what the team is at compared to the competition.
You know, and that's the thing. It's going to be so interesting. The opening game will be like no other opening game in the history of NFL football. You know, I don't know that there's ever been an opener without preseason games, without a sense of where a team's at.
We pros at the end of the day. So, I mean, tackling is going to be tackling, and football is going to be football. We can't change nothing about that. But, I mean, we just do what we can do about handling practice the way we can. We're trying to keep everybody healthy and safe and make it to the first game of the season.
And
Moving
one more note
to South Philadelphia.
Trey, one more note on Calais Campbell. I have never seen a human being up close and personal that large.
Yes,
and that in shape.
Quite a big guy. All right, moving on to South Philadelphia. Brandon, I know you couldn't wait for this. The Eagles are your defending NFC East champions.
Trey, did that hurt to say?
Coming off of a 9-7 year. It did, but I also will say this. The year ended how it's usually ended with the Carson Wentz injury. And for that very reason, the front office used their second-round pick on Oklahoma quarterback Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and apparently Jalen Hurts has looked pretty good so far this training camp. The team has already been battling injuries since the start of padded practices on Monday. Defensive lineman Javon Hargrave is expected to miss time in the regular season with a pec strain. This year in particular, depth will be important. With no preseason, coaches' evaluations will mean even more. And on top of that, without preseason games, there is the likelihood that there could be more injuries out there. So let's hear the side.
First game is a real game. It's a game that matters, a game that counts. And so, you know, one of the things we have to do as a staff and not only just a coaching staff, but a personnel staff is make sure we have the right guys, you know, going down to Washington for week one. And you always want to be, obviously you want to be competitive. You know, it's without having games to really evaluate and critique, you know, mistakes get magnified.
All right, taking our talents to Virginia, the Washington football team also began padded practices earlier this week. A pleasant surprise was quarterback Alex Smith. What a great story here, who went down with that gruesome leg injury back in 2018. He's been cleared by doctors to resume football activities, so he joins Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen in that always interesting Washington quarterback room.
Yeah, always interesting is the quarterback battle in Washington. There's one every year. The football team is in their first year with head coach Ron Rivera as he looks to rebuild the culture. Washington went just 3-13 a year ago. Brandon, I didn't want to send the trash talk already because we don't have any preseason games. We don't really know what's going to happen.
Right.
But what do we think will happen this year? We know that there are plenty of places that won't have fans. How does that play a part in what we will see this season?
Well, honestly, when it comes to preseason games, we saw the Detroit Lions go 4-0 one year and then go 0-16 during the regular season. So it really matters for individual players.
Absolutely.
Not so much for the team as a collection. But I got to focus here on the Redskins so far this offseason. I mean, have we seen
the Washington football team?
That's right. The Washington football team. They are no longer the Redskins.
That's right.
My apologies, everyone. We have not seen a team have this many big stories in an offseason in a long time. We had the name change, like we just mentioned, the Washington Post expose. Alex Smith, like we mentioned, cleared for football activities. A great story there. They had the number 2 overall pick in the draft, Chase Young, who is a monster. We've already seen videos out there of him dominating practice. And now Ron Rivera, the head coach, found to have cancer, but luckily it looks like he's going to get through it.
Yeah, and we talked about it a little bit earlier. Ron Rivera has now put out a backup plan so that if he is not able to coach throughout the full season, it looks like Jack Del Rio will step into the shoes there in Washington. But it's going to be a great season regardless. I think with no fans, I really, really want to keep my eyes on what's going to happen with the injury bug. We've already seen some injuries happen in a bunch of places, like we named in Philadelphia. The Cowboys have had plenty of injuries. The Washington football team has also had injuries. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with no preseason games and how these guys are conditioned without these 4 preseason games and how they look on week 1. Are we expecting any kind of drop-off in week 1? I'm still kind of a little shaky on that.
Yeah, and Trey, one more thing. We have to get to the Ravens. I mean, 14 wins last year. They had a 12-game winning streak at the end of the season, lost in the first game of the playoffs. What do we think? They're in the same conference with the Chiefs. Should they be the AFC favorites considering all the additions that we've seen on that defensive line?
I don't think so. I think that the Chiefs are the champions. They have the best player in the league for a reason, Patrick Mahomes. One could argue that Lamar Jackson is the best player in the league, but Lamar Jackson did not win the Super Bowl trophy. So I'm going to go with Patrick Mahomes. But I do think the Ravens have a better year in the playoffs. I don't think they have a better regular season. I think teams begin to figure out what Baltimore was running last year. I think Lamar has a little toned down year. I still think he's going to be amazing. Obviously, he's a transitional talent. But I think that they get farther in the playoffs. I definitely see Baltimore getting to the AFC Championship. I think at this point, with the talent on that roster, it's definitely AFC Championship or bust.
I totally agree with that, Trey.
All right, we could literally talk about the NFL all day long, but we have to move on to the biggest spectacle on Delmarva this weekend in the capital city.
That's right. Dover International Speedway will once again play host to NASCAR's biggest stage, and we caught up with some of the finest drivers on the circuit to get their take on the Monster Mile in this week's Insider Interview.
Topography, if you will, or the track configuration, the way that they built the banking for the turns is they kind of dug a hole in the end of each straightaway and took that dirt and brought it up. So it's one of the few tracks, and it's the track with the most, the biggest sensation of a drop off and the most, there's like a downhill and a jump that happens into each corner, which is just awesome. So that's the thing that really sets that track apart. And it's just that the center of the corner is probably 20 feet lower than the straightaway is. And it just introduces a whole different style of driving dynamics.
I think where the aggression will ramp up is strategy to put yourself up front to where you can kind of use your defenses at the end of the race. So, I think there's going to be some unique strategies, people trying to pop themselves up to the front, maybe near the end of the race or, at the end of these stages, and might put themselves in a vulnerable position to try to get those much needed points or that stage win or that race win at the end of the race. It's going to ramp up these next couple weeks. Everybody wanting to get in the playoffs. There's a few spots left. For our team, we obviously we can't do it on points. We've come very close at Dover, though. About my rookie season, I was leading inside 20 to go. So we know that we can do it. We just have to put ourselves in the right position. Hopefully, in this wild time, we don't really know what we're going to have for a setup in a car until we get out there and know the track. So hopefully Saturday and Sunday we can get our car dialed in, that maybe we can be one of those teams that takes one of those chances and gives ourselves the opportunity.
I'm excited for it. 2 races, 2 shots at it. We've done some simulator work this week, and I feel like we've done our homework. So the guys are working hard, getting down to the final couple races here to try to make the playoffs, and so I think we can do that, and hopefully we can just have a good weekend, kind of try to extend that points advantage that we have.
Now, Brandon, all of those drivers will have a maximum chance to get into the winner's circle this weekend. 6 total races at Dover this time around.
That's right, and it's believed to be the first time in NASCAR history that one track will host 6 point-capturing events across one weekend of racing. Incredible, and we're seeing history this weekend right here on Delmarva. Good luck to all the drivers out there. And Trey, you'll be out there this weekend.
I sure will. That's going to do it for the A block. We're taking a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're having an all-new After the Whistle. That and more when DSI returns.
Hi, I'm Jared Vasquez from the Salisbury School, and you're watching Delmarva Sports Insider.